John and James. John, why did you think James was right to play this absolute son of a bitch? And James, why did you want to play this total
I
asshole?
I I didn't think of James first up because I thought he might be a little bit young, but as soon as I met him, and realised how smart he was and how much he understood what we were trying to do, it was within about 5 minutes I just decided he's the guy, and we offered him a part the same day. So from thinking maybe a bit young to this is definitely our guy within a matter of minutes, it was incredible.
You saw the darkness within James.
I think so. I mean, I think I saw what it is that makes the film tick. It's about a guy with significant mental problems, and instead of the movies that I see that are maybe about somebody with mental problems or somebody with any kind of illness that are worthy and I don't know, sort of gritty realism or something like that. This is much more gritty surrealism, and I felt like John had written something which, for me, is still the best script I've ever read. John had written something that was fueled by the manic, dynamic, and interesting, and sometimes entertaining energy of certain mental illnesses. Instead of just being a worthy, wise, gritty, soulful, sad, depressing piece about how tough it is to be having mental health problems. It was more than that. It was sort of inside the mind of somebody who is delusional and paranoid and has split personality disorder and has all these things, and I thought that was fresh and very. It's a brave film. I mean, it's potentially controversial film, and it's very hard to find those these days because people are trying to walk a straight line so often, and this is anything but straight.
It is dark. I mean, some of the darkest scenes are the games, the quote unquote games he plays with his friends and stuff. I was wondering if we could just talk about what the games are and also, what some of the toughest ones were to portray.
I think the games, it comes from the novel, and the games are Bruce's manipulation of other people's uncertainty, yeah, and I think he's a master at that. He's a master at picking out the weak points in people's personality because he's probably such a weak person himself, and he's, it takes one to know one sort of thing, and I think that's what the games are, but the games in this film, all comes back to haunt him, obviously. So, but there's a lot of humor in the movie. There's a lot of, there's a lot of comedies running through the, through the tragic sort of story of Bruce, and the games are just a way of him sort of trying to gain some sort of control because he's a man who's totally out of control.
And James, what were the most sadistic games you got to play in this film?
In character, I just tormented him for 2 months. In character, I mean, the toughest one for me is that for me the games were about abuse. They were about a man who'd been abused and who would then reflect that abuse out onto the world. A man who regarded himself as filth and is terrified of facing up to that, and so projects that opinion of himself out onto everybody else and has to put everybody else down, build himself up, abuse others so that he's never a victim. He can't be a victim because he's the abuser. And on the first day of the shoot, I had to do a scene in which I blackmail a 15-year-old girl into giving me a blowjob, and that was fucking horrible. I've got absolutely no problem with it on the page. I was prepared for it and all of that, and I've got no problem with some of the really dark, all the other really dark stuff we do in the film. But that one was really hard to do, just because it's such a. I mean, all abuse is taboo and wrong, but it's such a, I don't know, an invasive type of abuse. I don't know. It was horrible.
It's interesting, though, because the audience stays with your character the entire time, despite all the terrible things he does. The audience, keeps coming back. It's kind of like a boxing match in a way.
Yeah, we were definitely. I don't know. I felt that the script that John wrote. What is a film aiming to do? What is a rom-com aiming to do? It's aiming to make you laugh and to make you maybe feel good about the opposite sex. What is a blockbuster meant to do? It's make you go, wow. What is this meant to do? I felt like John was trying to slap an audience as hard as he could and then go, hey, do you want to hang out? Yeah, no, we get on really, really well, kicking the balls. Do you know what I mean? I felt like John was trying to do something dynamic that threw an audience around, made them hate the central figure, made them love the central figure, question him, be shocked by him. At times want to walk out the theatre, and yet you're going to stay for the 90 minutes. And that was just something that I thought was exceptionally daring and brave, and I wanted to be a part of that. Did that answer the question? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think you got it. Maybe we could check out a clip of James in his element right now. So what was it like flicking off that kid? I mean,
yeah. It was all right. It was kind of a tough day, but it was good.
I mean, Bruce does a lot of booze and drugs in the film, and I'm curious. Yeah, is it tougher for you to act drunk or stoned?
Stoned, I'd say, is tougher for me to act because I've got less experience of stoned behaviour than I do of drunken behaviour. I've examined drunken behaviour as a professional more in depth, whilst my experience of portraying and examining... I'm talking rubbish. I'm going to stop now, okay?
He's drunk.
I'm drunk. I'm researching drunkenness right now.
I mean, what did you guys use for the drugs? I'm always curious what you guys use for cocaine and stuff in movies. What did you guys use?
It's glucose powder. That's what they use. That's what fake cocaine is. Glucose powder, I believe.
I was like, wow, I'm flying. It was just nothing happening.
Sugar high. I mean, for you guys, John, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, James, not to embarrass James, but James does have these very sort of sympathetic eyes. And was it important for you to really kind of, for you to really glaze those over in the film and kind of neutralize that trait of his? Because that's a trait that for a lot of his, good guy roles is something that directors really lift and emphasize on film.
Yeah, I mean, there's one. The thing about Bruce is nobody sees. He's an outrageous character, and the only person that sees him is a human, is a character. Is an actress, Joanne Froggatt. She plays a character called Mary, and Bruce tries to save her husband's life, and she sees him as a hero. And there's a scene between them two where James's eyes really pop out. These blue eyes really pop out, and you see, you see the humanity of Bruce there, and it's a beautiful image, yeah. But he managed to hide them for the rest of the whole film, But with that moment, I don't know what it was, but he let the audience into the humanity of the character, with those incredible blues,
The incredible blues.
I love you, James.
I think I'm going to get lucky tonight, guys.
I mean, James, how did you just channel the darkness too? This is probably the darkest character you've played so far. How did you go to that dark place?
I'm very different from Bruce, but I think for me the defining aspect of him is his raging inferiority complex, which is outside of his mental health problems, and his self-loathing. And I think we've all got a little bit of that. We've all got a little bit of doubt about, am I up to it? Am I good enough? Or if we don't have it all the time, we've got it inside us to doubt. We've got it inside ourselves to compare ourselves unfavorably against those around us. And so you just take that and you grow it and you grow it and you grow it until it controls you. And as irrational as the conclusions that kind of self-doubt, self-loathing and inferiority complex as irrational as the conclusions are that leads you to, you've got to start believing them. You've got to start believing that you're worthless. And when you've got no respect for yourself, you're going to start treating yourself badly. And when you've got no respect for yourself, you're going to start treating others badly. And it's about growing that tiny seed that you share in common with somebody who's got a massive tree of rage and self-loathing. Do you know what I mean? I'm talking such rubbish today, guys. I am sorry. But I hope you get it.
John, we've heard what James's toughest scene was to film. What was the toughest scene for you to capture, just as a director?
There's a scene I suppose it was the toughest, and it was also my favourite scene. And there's a scene between James and Imogen Poots, who plays a character called Drummond. And it starts at the top of a staircase, and it ends at the bottom of this winding staircase, and it starts with them going at each other verbally. Then it becomes quite funny in places, and then it gets physically abusive, and then his character breaks down, and then he hallucinates, and then so you're talking about an actor playing 5 or 6 different people within one scene, yeah, and he does it seamlessly. And I remember thinking on the page, this is like a 3-page dialogue scene. How on earth is this going to be? How on earth are we going to, do this and keep that level up? And this guy just blew it out the water, And I remember looking around the crew as we were one of the takes, and the sound guy was actually crying, right? That's really experienced sound guy was actually crying, and I thought
Chopping onions.
Yeah, and I thought, my God, I've never seen that before, so that was my favourite scene, but also the toughest, I think, for myself and James to as an actor to get, because he's, as I say, he's doing 5 different things within the space of a minute,
There's a scene in the film which is my favourite scene in the film, because I think it sums up in a moment what I thought you were trying to do with the script, and also it sums up for me a lot of what Irvine Welsh is, where I'm watching home movies of my estranged wife and child who I miss very much, and I'm crying my eyes out. And I pick up the telephone and I phone the wife of my best friend, and I pretend to be a chat show host from 1980s Britain, Frank Sidebottom, vocally, and I have phone sex with her whilst watching my wife and child cry my eyes out and masturbating. And for me, that scene is upsetting and gross and funny and surreal and horrific and tragic, and all at the same time, all in one go, like that. And for me, that's what I think John was just brilliant at writing and brilliant at directing, kind of having so many layers and so many experiences for both the actors and the audience all at once that were compelling you to stay and repelling you at the same time. And this weird conflict happening in the audience, not just conflict on the screen, but a conflict in the audience of like, do I like this guy? Do I hate this guy? Do I want to get out of the theatre? Why can't I get out of my seat? And that was fun to be a part of.
Also an expert display of multitasking. If I
Thank
must
you very
say
much.
so myself. So let's go to another clip. This is of James getting into some of his games with his number one victim. So yeah, I think we can open this up now to the audience. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, dude.
Hi. This is the question for John. This book was based on Irvine Welsh, who also wrote Trainspotting. And seeing that Trainspotting, it's such an actually intriguing, actually visual approach they did. And as much as fascinating over the storytelling, but what kind of the visual approach that you take on this actually film that you can talk about?
Okay, I never actually used Trainspotting as a reference, believe it or not. I used more. I thought I'm a huge fan of Danny Boyle. I'm actually working with Danny at the moment on something in the UK. A huge fan of his, and James has worked with him as well. But I never used Trainspotting as a reference because Irvine, the writer himself, said you've got to, everybody who tries to do one of my movies, and he's had a few of his books turned into movies, he says they all try and copy Trainspotting. So you want to put that out of your head. So I never used it as a reference. Obviously, there's going to be similarities in some of the humor because it's from the same writer. Yeah, so you're not going to be, you can't get away from that. And it's set in the same city, and it's the underbelly of this of Edinburgh. But I used more Stanley Kubrick and it's A Clockwork Orange was visually. A Clockwork Orange was my main visual reference. Yeah, exactly. Jim Broadbent's character, his speech pattern is pretty much copied from a character in Clockwork Orange called Deltoid. He's got this really strange speech pattern. And but I was just obsessed with Clockwork Orange as not only a visual reference, but also because it's a very strong central performance. It's an anti-hero who, again, you shouldn't really like, but you can't help yourself from following this guy, you know. So that was the main thing. And I think Danny, to be honest, used Kubrick as a reference when he did Trainspotting 2, you know, in terms of the kind of lenses he used, a lot of the wide-angle close-ups, and we used the same thing here to convey a different message. But so I would say that was more of a reference than anything, and also Terry Gilliam as well. You know, he's some of his stuff as well. Yeah, but it's a really good question.
Hi, I'm wondering what kind of research was done into depicting having bipolar disorder versus just being an asshole, for example.
I suppose, without getting into it too much, both John and I have got quite vast experiences of mental illness in our lives, and the research was done in life, and just in getting to that point, really. I think rather than getting an actor who wasn't genned up on it all, and then goes away and becomes like absorbed in it, it was the script came to an actor who just knew it on the first read, really, without getting into it too much. But yeah, I mean, because he's not just bipolar. For me, he's paranoid schizophrenic. He's split personality disorder. He's got a million things going on, exacerbated by being a junkie and being an alcoholic, as well as just not being very nice. So. Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-layered thing, and that is the problem with so much mental illness, is it isn't just you are such and such, you are this, you have this wrong with you. How do you define what is wrong? You really can't, a lot of the time. And why it's so hard to treat, because it's so mercurial, and you can't grasp it, you can't look at it, you can't see it with a microscope. It's why it's such a tragic thing to be going through for people, you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah.
No, and just to add to that, I think that was the reason that me and James connected very, very quickly, because when I met him for the first time, he said, "Look, I really like your script." He says, "But when I found out it was about mental illness, that's what made me want to, it was not just about mental illness, but when I found out the character had a mental illness, that's what really made me want to do it." And then we both discovered that we had this thing in common, that we've had experience with somebody, both had experience with somebody who had that. And so I knew he was the right guy. As soon as he said that, I just really had a spine tingling moment, in that I thought, this is the guy. This is definitely the guy to do this,
Hello, James, John. This question is for the two of you. Specifically, starting with James, when developing the character, what did you find in the script, or just your own research or take on the character, that really was his main need, or like what drove him to do all of the things that he does in the film to others? What did he want to get from others, people, and what did he want to get out of life? I'm interested in your perspective as well as John's.
I think he's been living a lie from a very, very young age, and that lie is that he is not worthless, and that he is not filth, and he is not scum, because deep down he believes he is, but he's been doing such a good job of pretending that he is not, pretending that he is worthy, that he is powerful, he's been doing such a good job of that for such a long time, that I think he's been pretending for such a long time that he can no longer tell what's right and wrong. He's exacerbated his problems with alcohol and with drugs, and his wife has left him because of bad behavior as well. But he's now at a point where the real world and the true him is starting to become apparent to him. Paranoid or delusional people aren't really a problem to themselves if they can believe in their delusion. It's when the real world starts to exert itself upon their perception. And so the real world is starting to influence him. The real world is starting to become perceivable to him. The real him is starting to become perceivable as we meet him in this film. And that means you're meeting him at the most dangerous time, because when he truly looks at himself in the mirror and sees who he actually is, then there's only really one choice for him. But the way that he abuses others is twofold, really. It's part of it is, you know, to keep others down, keep him up. If I'm the powerful one, if I'm the bully, if I'm the abuser, then there's no way I can be the abused victim here. And then the other part of it is just this reflection, this projection of, you know, there's no way I am weak, so you are. You guys are all the weak guys, and I will do anything I can to put you down, to make me feel powerful. And also the love of his wife and child. That as much as this man is a demon, he's in love with them. And he's a mess, man. He's a mess.
I think the key word you just said was love, and I think to me this story, its heart is a love story in a way. It's a tragic love story. It's about a man who is wandering around in the dark looking for a light switch, and that light switch is love, because he doesn't love himself. He's lost love. His family have fallen out of love with him, and he's got the opportunity, you think, to get that back. And if you go and see the film, you'll see what happens. But to me, it's about a man who's missing love, yeah, and that's why he's behaving in this manner, you know. Thank you very much. Some really great questions. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers for coming.
Thank you.